India's market news headquarters. Cutting-edge analysis. Influential insights. Market-moving intelligence. Broadcasting live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. It's a Tuesday morning, and will today be the day when sometime during the course of the session we are basically back at the last all-time high. We're not very far away. I think, 50-odd points, 60-odd points, and we are there. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Nigel and Surabhi. Guys, good morning.
Hi, good morning. So I think we've got a lot going on. Geopolitics making all kind of headlines. Not too much change by way of yields or, overnight action in terms of fresh macro cues from the US. Yeah. But hey, we're 70 points off, just under 70 points off from that milestone. What do you say, Nigel?
Well, indeed, yesterday it gave you the sense maybe in the final 60 minutes we could see that flurry. It didn't take place, so maybe today's the day.
Yeah, the start is indicating a slightly lower, neither here nor there kind of a thing. But I mean, if the market is going to do what it has always done, which is
buy the dip
at some point, I mean, today could be the day. Well, the point is, it's kind of it's not as if we're coming back to these highs after 3 or 4 years. We were there practically recently, and you're just sort of reclaiming some of those levels. So that excitement is there, but you've got to have much higher levels for some real excitement to come back. But in any case, not a bad sign at all to look at the previous highs sharply in focus, a point we've made for the last at least 5 or 6 trading sessions now. So let's just sort of begin with that. The Nifty is almost back at new all-time highs. In terms of a record close, we almost got to, I think, within 1 point of it. In terms of closing, all-time high, as we've been saying, 50-60 points higher. The high is 25,078. We left off at 25,000 and 10-11 yesterday. Now, overnight, you might look at the US session and say markets are down, and they are about 1/3% down on the S&P. Nasdaq is down about 0.8. But consider this: it was the lightest volume session in the US markets for all of 2024 last night. In light markets, it's very one should not make, or rather read too much into moves and big moves. This is not a big move, but I think, for example, the semiconductor index sold off yesterday. Nvidia was down 2.5%. We'll come to that in just a bit. But light markets, I don't think should be read into too much. That's essentially the point. I think look at this as just a bit of a drift and nothing more. Now, US 10-year yield was about 2 basis points higher. We're back at about 3.82. Nothing. The dollar index is close to about 101. A slight bump. You had basically Fed's daily who questioned labor market weakness last night. I mean, it was not as if it was a marked difference as compared to what we heard from Powell at Jackson Hole. But she did kind of make the point that she doesn't want to declare that the Fed is on the path to neutral rates just yet. That, they're most definitely on the path to easing. She doesn't see the labor market as being too troubled. And I think post these comments is when yields made a bit of a move and the dollar saw a bit of a bump. Now, of course, geopolitics is very much the name of the game, both in the Middle East and, of course, between Russia and Ukraine. And, both seeing sharp escalation on 2 different fronts over the last 24 and 48 hours. Oil prices, as a result, have moved up a little bit more. Last night, they went up almost 3%. We are back above $81 a barrel. I think from recent lows of about 76 and a half, we are back above 81. Now, tomorrow night, you get the NVIDIA results. And that's essentially the Pied Piper for the entire AI story. The AI story is not a one-way story now. There is, pull and push, and a lot of people kind of questioning the economic implications, at least in the near to medium term. Long term, no one disputes, but there is sort of pushback coming into this as well. And of course, NVIDIA has got its own issues with that Blackwell chip the launch getting delayed, etc., etc. And this could be material for US markets because so much of what the US has done is because of semiconductors and led by NVIDIA especially. Now, just to come back to the levels here, for the Nifty, of course, I mean, the all-time high is in view, and that'll be the first target in that sense. Above that, you look at a simple Fibonacci retracement level, which comes in at about 25,530. So that's a level after we cross and close above the previous all-time high. That's a very near term. We can sort of look at this in greater detail. Support for the Nifty comes in at 24,780, which is the hourly average, and then the 20-day moving average, which is far below at 24,550. Bank Nifty yesterday closed around the falling trend line of 51,150. We left off at 51,148, so practically there. And a decisive move above this trend line, which is a falling trend line, Bank Nifty can target the upper daily Bollinger Band, which is at about 51,867. Support for the Bank Nifty comes in at the swing low, which is 50,856. GIFT Nifty indicates, I think, about a 20-25 odd point lower starts, which is, as I said, neither here nor there. And I don't think there is too much to be read from what happened overnight from US markets. So it's entirely possible that, after maybe a flattish start, we quickly bump up and at least touch that sort of last all-time high at about 25,078. Surabhi.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at the Asian screens as we speak, Prashant, and it's just to see a Fred out there because there is some caution, there is profit-taking that's going on. Whether you're looking at the Hong Kong markets or Shanghai right now, down 0.25%, Kospi, I mean, the whole lot, Japan, everything's down. It's not a slide, but yes, there's lots of profit-taking going on across Asia, which is why the GIFT Nifty is indicating that it will probably start off on a cautious note. Now, in terms of, the focal points, all that's happening around geopolitics suddenly is sort of back center stage, and we're talking several flashpoints. There's obviously what's happening between Israel and Hezbollah trading rockets, and then yesterday we had headlines out of Ukraine and Russia, with Russia targeting some of the oil infrastructure in Ukraine. And if that wasn't enough, now there's a third angle to it, because yesterday there was some chatter about Libya looking at shutting down a large part of their crude output, and that could, I was reading somewhere, I think, could easily, if all the output goes, it could take 1 million barrels off the market immediately. So there's a lot of rhetoric. I mean, those are internal issues in Libya ongoing, but the oil market really took note of Libya because of the extent of impact, direct impact on oil supply that could take place. So that led to that big surge both on NYMEX and Brent oil. In fact, even this morning, I mean, Brent, yesterday when we left off, remember we started the week with Brent around 79. As we were closing, we were at around 80. And this morning, the prices climbed to above 81. So that escalation is something that we need to really watch out for. Remains a bit of a spot of bother. Yesterday, of course, as Prashant mentioned, not too much out of Wall Street action, but that sector rotation is very, very interesting. For no apparent reason, the fall in tech is something that the market really took note of. Even the Dow couldn't hold at the all-time highs that it hit. Apart from NVIDIA, the other interesting facet is going to be Apple. Apple's event, of course, that annual fall event that they do where they unveil newer models of their products, that is slated for the 9th of September. But beyond that, the change in the CFO is something that's got the market's eye as well. The old CFO, Luca Maestri, he's being moved out. He's still in the company, but in a different role, and he's being replaced with Kevin Parekh, who's of Indian origin. So that remains sort of a point to track as well. Looking at flows back home, well, the situation is that FIIs, at least they weren't on the sell side. We had a mild buy figure, about 500 crores of a buy figure. Domestic institutions bought equity worth about 1,900 crores in the cash market. The Nifty, as we've been discussing, less than 70 points away from the all-time high, but the start is going to be cautious given the global cues. Will the buy-on dips play out is what we're going to see. Given what's happened on, Nasdaq overnight and the fact that IT rallied yesterday, I'm expecting some profit taking on IT as we start, but then let's see if that dip gets bought. And the big, big question is going to be whether banks can provide that ammunition, whether they can step in and do some heavy hitting, the heavy lifting, so to speak, because that's where the performance has been patchy in the last couple of days, Nigel.
Well, that's right. I'll take it off from there then, Surbhi, because the Nifty Bank, that's the one that's going to be the trendsetter. That's in a bit of a range. If it can break out of the range, then that'll be actually good news. So today we'll have the Nifty Financial Services Index that plays out the options as well as the futures expiry. So that's going to be a mover in the second half of trade. The Nifty uptrend, I would say, is intact. The 20 DMA is held. This uptrend is well and truly, continuing. The Nifty Bank, that's been a bit of a range. That needs to move out of that range, and that's what will give us direction from there on. What about the FI positioning? Yesterday, they added some long positions, close to around 17,000 long contracts, and they covered close to 15,000 contracts, which explains why we went from 25,000 long positions to around 57,000 long positions. So the FIs, they are net long. In fact, the net long positioning is the highest we have seen all the way since 7th of August. So that's the data point on the FIs. The clients, well, they booked some profits because the long positioning, well, it did come down a little bit. The FIs as of now, 55% is the long positions as of now. That as well is at a couple of weeks high that we have seen. The client's positioning should come up for you on the screen. Yesterday, from around 34,000 contracts, it came down to around 16,000 contracts. So they unbound some long positions, which is par for the course. That's about the FI and the client positioning. What about the options data? 25,050 call, that was extremely active in yesterday's trading session, and the 25,000 put. So plugging in these numbers, you get a broad range. You have these contracts that will expire on Thursday itself. So the levels to track, as I said, the 20 DMA, well, that's the important marker on the downside. That's the crucial support. And till that's held out, you'll see that the uptrend is well and truly on. Yeah, the highs that we saw at the start of August and the all-time high is at around the 25,078 mark. We couldn't get to there. So that's going to be the level that you're watching on the upside. The Nifty Bank, that's the mover, that's the important mark. Yesterday as well, we made this point, 51,300, 51,400. That's a bit of a resistance zone. And that's part in line with where the 50 DMA is at. You have support coming at the 20 DMA, but that's the important mark, which is at around that 51,400 odd mark on the Nifty Bank. As I said, the financial services index will play out the expiry. So that's going to be the mover in the second half of trade. The stock I'm looking at is a stock from the cash market. We're looking at Gillette. Yesterday, Gillette moved very, very well. And in the last 1 year or so, it's moved from around 5,000 rupees closer to around 9,000 rupees. So, and this big surge has come in the last few days as well. Keep in mind, it's come on very, very large volume. So Gillette is a stock that I'm looking at. They have their results that they report in the next couple of days. And this big surge was backed with solid delivery-based buying as well. It has its results. Is the street sniffing something? I'll tell you what, from 2019 to 2020, the stock was a big underperformer, but it seems to be breaking out of a range. So we'll keep an eye out on this stock as well.
All right, Nigel, thank you very much for that. So keep an eye out on that name and, of course, range of factors which will be at play today and over the next couple of sessions.